Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. In today's video, we're going to be doing a mid-month wrap-up for what I've read so far in the month of March. So grab a drink, grab a snack so we can chat about the 15 books I've already read this month. I gotta say, it's been a pretty good reading month so far. We're gonna start off with a new release. So this is Claim Me Forever by A.L. Jackson. This series was hit or miss. The first book I was not a fan of, which was not usual for me because usually I am obsessed with everything A.L. Jackson writes. But the first one kind of let me down, but the second one redeemed itself. So this was like the tiebreaker. I was like, okay, this will determine whether or not the series is still a winner for me or if it's not my favorite, you know? It ended up being a favorite. It was a 5-star read. I just love her writing style so much. I know it's not for everybody. It is definitely more like on the poetic side and it might not be complete sentences. Sometimes it's more like a spoken word kind of writing style. I don't know. I just feel like it's different. I like how she sets herself apart, and I love how when I read something I know it's by A.L. Jackson. You know what I mean? So I liked it. This one was really interesting because the male main character is the town sheriff, and then the female main character, he calls her a little trespasser because he finds her like trespassing in his small town. So you find out that she is there to kind of uncover this mystery about her sister. She found this journal and she's like trying to use it to figure out what happened to her sister that she hasn't seen in years. And then the male main character, you meet him in the other two books, so you kind of already know this going into it, but he is a widower. He has a wife that passed away a few years ago, and he's a single dad of 3 kids. And he's a sheriff, so you can imagine the kind of character that he is. He's obviously very protective, and he obviously has a lot of guilt surrounding his wife's death, but not in the way that you would think. So I really appreciated it. This was not predictable, and that's saying something because I've read literally every book that she's ever published, and sometimes they do follow similar formulas, so sometimes I'm able to predict the plot twist pretty early on, but this one still got me. This one still got me. And like I said, I just loved how she was like a little trespasser and then he was the sheriff. I don't know. I know it's lame, but I just loved it. I ate it up. So 5-star read, easy 5 stars. I loved it. I wouldn't change a thing. Okay, next was an audiobook. So next I read Hawk by Jessie Hall. I feel like it could just be that I misunderstood when people describe this book, but I thought this was going to be a dark romance. And I think it could be because I was thinking of like the other books that Jessie Hall has written, like That Sick Love is about like a cult. So I thought this one was going to be like darker. Yes, it is a forbidden like taboo romance, and this does involve cheating. So if that's not your thing, you're not going to like this. I usually don't mind cheating in books because usually like it's done purposefully and like it makes sense. You know, the ones that I've read anyway. But even this one had me questioning a little bit. I'm like, do I like cheating in books? Because this one makes you question it. This one is not like, I feel like most authors usually when the girl is cheating, like, or the guy is cheating, like, you're still usually on their side. And even though the girl is with a really terrible guy in this book, I feel like she could have handled it better. So this one was hard for me. The audiobook definitely made it. Like, if you're gonna read this, you have to listen to it on audio because the book itself is only from the female main character's point of view. But the audiobook is a duet narration. I think that's what it's called, where it's like both narrators talking throughout the whole book. I feel like that really elevated it. I think that would have been a lot better than just reading it only from her point of view, if that makes sense. So I still really liked it, and I loved the male main character in here, Hawk, the one who the book is named after. I loved his backstory. I loved his characteristics. I just loved him as a person and how he was with Nicole. He's definitely like the misunderstood, like, bad boy of the book. I liked uncovering his past. Like, that's really what kept me going and wanting to keep reading. The female main character was not my favorite. Like I said, I just didn't agree with the way that she handled some things. So I ended up giving this a 4-star. It was still a really enjoyable audiobook experience. So if you like audiobooks, I recommend giving this one a try. But I feel like if I would have read it, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. So I'm gonna give it a 4 because I do have to take into account the fact that I did listen to it. So I think that definitely did give me a higher rating. Okay, next we have another addition to my 6-star list. next, which is super exciting, we have Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This is a new Tessa Bailey release, and it's a golf romance, which I was here for it, okay? I grew up watching golf and kind of like being around people who played golf, so I really appreciated all the golf references. I don't know if this would be as successful if you are not a golf person. I don't know, but I think I'm just partial to sports romances anyway, even if I don't like the sport. But in this one, I actually knew the sport enough to, you know, be able to keep up with those references, so I really enjoyed it. It talks a lot about like what it's like in the PGA and in the tournaments that they do, but you still got some crazy humor and sex scenes that only Tessa Bailey can execute. Like, this book is wild, but in the best way, and I just love these two as a couple. Like, this is definitely Grumpy Sunshine, like, to the max. This guy is grumpy, and he, like, hates the world, okay? And she is literally his biggest fan, and it gets to the point where he is a huge golfer, but then he kind of, like, has a downfall, so then she ends up being, like, his only fan left. He was not nice to her. He basically like blew her off. He kind of like blew up at her and kind of like ruined his career, just like quit golf like mid-tournament, taking it out on her, and it was just not a good look. It was not a good look. There ends up being a hurricane. The store that her family has owned for generations is like wrecked by this hurricane, and she doesn't know what she's gonna do. The main character finds out about it, and they kind of strike up a deal where he offers her to help him get his game back and be his caddy so that they can win some money to help fix her parents' shop. I really liked this, and the author's note in the beginning, you find out that the female main character has diabetes. It was really interesting to see Tessa Bailey's perspective, because you find out in the author's note that her daughter has type 1 diabetes. I believe it's type 1. I could be wrong. It could be type 2. I can't remember the difference. But I think that representation was handled really well. I mean, Tessa Bailey lives it every day with her daughter, you know, so I think it was really cool like to see that in here. And I think that really elevated the emotional depth in this book, because I will say some of the like newer Tessa Bailey releases haven't been my favorite. They've been more like surface level, and it wasn't really like my thing at the time. But this one definitely takes it a step further than all of her other new releases. This is my favorite Tessa Bailey new release that I've read in a long time. And yeah, this book will live rent-free in my brain for the foreseeable future. It's a 6-star read. I was obsessed. Like, I was literally like laughing out loud and like giggling and kicking my feet and screaming the whole time I was reading this book. I was crying. Like, it was great. It was very swoon-worthy, funny, emotional, and yeah, it was the whole package. It delivered on everything. I couldn't ask for a better sports romance. So even if you're not a golf fan, I want you to read this to let me know what you think, because I'm really curious. Okay, next, I read a really, really good one. Like I said, it's been a really great reading month, okay? Next, I read The Pug Secret by G.N. Wright. This is my first time reading something by this author, and it definitely won't be my last. This was a 5-star read. This is a hockey romance. Now, this has a very similar setup to a book I talked about in my February wrap-up. So I read The Pucking Wrong Number in February by Sierra Jane, and has a very similar setup where the guy's a hockey player and they somehow get the wrong number and like text each other. So they have like this texting relationship between each other where they have an instant connection, but it's anonymous and they don't know. So this is the exact same setup at the beginning, but there's a twist with this one. The female main character is the daughter of the mayor, I think, or the governor or something like that. And the male main character is like the rival to her brother and her, because, wait for it, her dad cheated on her mom with the male main character's mom and like ruined their lives. Like, the drama and the tension is unreal. Like, sometimes enemies to lovers doesn't work for me, because I feel like it's usually a stupid reason why they hate each other, and it's usually like petty. But like, this made sense. This made sense. Like, they have history together. There's a lot of bad blood between their families, and you know, obviously if they were to even think about having feelings for the other person, there's just no way. Like, it's forbidden and taboo in its own way, you know what I mean? So I really liked that. And her brother plays on the same hockey team as him, so there you have that element as well. And it's interesting because they have that in their real lives, and they have this anonymous connection via text message. So I just love that dynamic, how they have like the relationship in person versus the relationship they have in text message. This was way better than the Pucking Wrong Number. That's part of the reason why in my February wrap up I said like Pucking Wrong Number didn't do it for me, because I feel like other books did it better. This book did it better. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. If you're looking for a hockey romance pickup, even if you don't like hockey, I think you're still gonna like this. It does have some hockey, but I feel like it's not like in your face. And there's just so much going on in here. Nova Darkmoor is the main character. I'm obsessed with him. Like, the things this man does, listen, I just can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. Please, please read this. It's really good. And I definitely want to read the other books. I know that she also wrote like an MC or like motorcycle club romance, I believe. So I really want to read that too. So this was a winner for sure. 5-star hockey romance, enemies to lovers. Really, really good. Really good. Okay, then I went into the Cherry Tree Harbor series by Melanie Harlow. So I've already read the first 2 books and the 4th book just came out, so I needed to catch up. So I read the 3rd book, Make Believe Match. This one was hard because this was like it ended up being a marriage of convenience, right? And I kind of knew that from like the teasers that Melanie Harlow put on her website or on her Instagram, where the female main character, her family owns this like ski lodge resort type place, and it's like been in her family for generations, but it's kind of like the older washed up ski resort that like no one really goes to, and they're in financial troubles, and her grandma wants to sell it, but she's really like wanting to keep it in the family because of all the memories they have, and it's just like really important to her. So the male main character is the guy who works at the company trying to buy it, and it ends up being a marriage of convenience because, well, I don't want to give spoilers, but so I kind of knew that going in. But what I didn't know is it starts off with them having a one-night stand together before they know each other in terms of the ski lodge being sold. Like, they don't know about the connections there. They just meet randomly at a bar, have a one-night stand. It's great. They really like each other. And then they show up to the lunch to talk about the selling of the lodge, and that's when they realize, oh, that's you. So I think because of that, like, it felt a little like insta-lovey, but then she was like mad at him when she realized who she was, because she thought that he knew the whole time that it was her and he like tricked her or something. And I just didn't like how she just like immediately thought the worst of him and like wouldn't listen to him. She was just being really immature in my opinion. So I don't know, I think the pacing was just weird for me because I feel like it all happened so fast because they've already slept together, they already liked each other, and then they tried to do like a hate to love thing, but then they got married. So it was just weird with the timing. It just didn't work for me personally. I still love Melanie Harlow and like the small town vibe she creates, like the way that she writes, chemistry between the characters is still really good. So like it wasn't terrible, but the pacing was not my favorite. So I gave it like a 3.5, somewhere in there. It's definitely not as strong as her other books. Yeah, I don't know. If you like marriage of convenience and fake dating more than I do, then maybe you like it. Or if you're not as opposed to like the one night stand trope, maybe, I don't know. So then I went into Small Town Swoon. This one I really like. This was a 4-star read. So this one is like a best friend's brother romance. So Dash is the male main character, and he is now a famous actor, but he is kind of like the Zac Efron type. Like he had like a Disney Channel type persona that got him really famous, but now he wants more serious roles now that he's older and he's not really being taken seriously because people don't think that he has like the emotional depth to take on the more serious roles. So with the advice of his agent, he goes back to his small town to kind of like rediscover himself, tune into his emotions, all that kind of stuff. So he gets reunited with Ari, who they kind of grew up together because she was best friends with his younger sister. She works as a waitress at this old like 50s diner in the small town. So I really like that aspect of it because I thought it was just really like wholesome and cute. So she kind of helps him get in tune with his emotions by showing him rom-com movies and all of those, like, not even just rom-coms, but like Titanic, Casablanca, you know, like those kinds of movies to kind of show him like the emotional range that he can try to develop in his other roles basically. So they kind of started friends with benefits kind of thing, and it just goes from there. This was really cute. Like I said, it wasn't anything like groundbreaking by any means, but it was cute and it did what it needed to do. So it's a 4-star read for me. Next I read A Game of Retribution by Scarlett St. Clair. So this is the second book from Hades' point of view in her Hades and Persephone series. So as I said in my February wrap up, I'm rereading this series. I've read the Persephone books, now I'm reading the Hades books because the new book is actually already out now. I have it. Let me show you. So this is the new book that just came out. I love this cover so much. This is a thick one though. Like, I'm a little intimidated, to be honest. But anyway, I have been going through the Hades books to try and like re-familiarize myself with the story. So I finished this one, A Game of Retribution. This one was very interesting because I feel like we got a lot extra from Hades' point of view here. I feel like, I don't know if she talked about this storyline in the Persephone book, but you find out that Hades has to do all of these labors for Hera because Hera, Zeus's wife, she's the goddess of marriage basically in this world, and she has to kind of like give her blessing for Hades and Persephone to have a lawful wedded marriage basically. So she threatens Hades to not approve of the marriage, and the only way that she will is if he completes these trials or labors for her. And the reason why she's doing this is because she's kind of trying to teach him a lesson because she wanted to use him to overthrow Zeus, but he did not want to do that. So now she's kind of like making him do these terrible things that he does not want to do, but he doesn't want to let Persephone down. So he's kind of like doing all of this in secret. Like, I don't even think it was on Persephone's radar. So if this happened in the Persephone book, I don't remember, but it's just very interesting to see it from his point of view, like all these things that he had to do, and it's just like heart-wrenching, like everything that he had to go through in order for him and Persephone to have everything that they want. So there's a lot of extra action in here that you did not get in the other storyline, which I really appreciated. Definitely really, really good. I gave it 5 stars. I also really liked this because you also get the point of view of Dionysus. I think he's gonna get his own book, maybe with Ariadne, maybe? I don't know, they kind of have like their own subplot romance going on, which again, I didn't even like realize in the Persephone books. I don't know if I just, because it's been so long since I read it that I forgot, or if you just don't get it in her book at all. I don't know, but Scarlett St. Clair definitely put a lot of extra stuff in here and I loved it. It was such a good time. I gave it 5 stars. And I'm on the 3rd Hades book right now, A Game of Gods. I'm like partway through that one. I'm a little intimidated because I'm just like scared for this series to be over. And I know that like some shit is gonna go down in this book. And I don't know if I'm like mentally or emotionally ready for that yet. So I have kind of been putting it off just a tad. But you know, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, next I read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This was a new release that I pre-ordered and I was really excited for it. I loved Done and Dusted. That was like one of my top reads of 2023. This is a cowboy romance. This book follows the brother of the female main character from the first book. So this follows Wes and Ada. So he is the middle brother and I think he's kind of struggled with like, you know, knowing that his older brother is the one who's going to take over the farm because he's the oldest, he's the next in line. And then his sister, Emmy, from the first book, she was a barrel racer. So they both kind of had their things, but Wes, the middle child, didn't really have like his thing. So he decided that he is going to redo a part of the ranch. It actually used to be the family home of his dad when he was a kid. It's like this old house. It's smaller than the main house they all live in now, but it's like still the property, but no one's really done anything with it after all these years. So he's gonna make it into kind of like an Airbnb, like rental kind of situation, like a vacation home. So it's like a big undertaking. Ada is the one coming into the small town to take over the interior design project, and this is their romance. This was really good. I will say it wasn't as good as the first book. Like, I think I had maybe too high of expectations because of how good the first book was, but it's not like Lila Sage did anything wrong because I loved everything that happened, but I feel like it was too short, so I feel like it wasn't as developed or as full-fledged as the first book was. This was only like 200 something pages. It was very short and I felt like I just wanted more. So I gave it a 4-star rating because I still really liked the characters. Ada's backstory is she just got out of a marriage that was not the healthiest, kind of like a toxic marriage, and she's kind of trying to like find herself again. You find out Wes has suffered depression pretty much his whole life. So I think that's the part that I really wanted more out of, because I myself have suffered from depression as well, and I was actually really excited not only to have that representation in a book, but to have it from the male perspective, because I will say I feel like mental health representation is a lot better for women, but I feel like men still don't get the mental health representation that they deserve, because men feel emotions just as much as women do in their own way. And I feel like that it was just a great opportunity that I think was a little bit missed, or like underdeveloped in my opinion. I still appreciated that she did include it, and I love the small town vibe. I love the characters. I'm really excited to continue the series. I recently found the whole series by Melanie Harlow, the Cloverleaf Farms series, at a like indie bookstore. They had the whole series by Melanie Harlow in paperback special edition, and I couldn't resist. I bought the whole series. Now, I read this series like 3 years ago, I think back in like 2021, and it's one of my favorite series by Melanie Harlow. It's kind of what made me fall in love with Melanie Harlow back in the day, and I don't know if it's because when I read Make Believe Match and Small Town Swoon earlier in the month, I kind of like wanted more, and it made me like miss old Melanie Harlow. Plus, I definitely been in a mood where I've been doing a lot of wanting to do more rereads and have like that nostalgia of going back to an old favorite. So I decided, let's just binge the series. So let's get into that. So first I read Irresistible. This is a nanny single dad romance with a 10-year age gap. I will say, so I'm gonna link in the cards up above the 1-star review video I did with my husband, where he found 1-star reviews of some of my favorite books. And this is one of the books from that video. And I will say, like, some of the reviews definitely were in my mind when I was reading this. So Franny is actually 27 in this book, and then Mac is 37. Like, it made sense with the story because like she's the nanny, like whatever, and I love a good age gap. But I will say, like, the way Franny acts in this book, I didn't remember her being 27. I thought she was way younger. So I could see where some of the reviews were coming from, where they're like, why does she act like she's like 12 years old? Or, you know, whatever. It's not that bad, but she definitely acts more immature than a typical 27-year-old would act. So that was definitely the back of my mind, but I feel like it does make sense because which I forgot this piece, but you do find out that Franny, when she was really young, she had like a heart defect of some kind. So her parents were super protective of her. She had a very sheltered childhood compared to the rest of her sisters, and she was like homeschooled, and she hasn't really left her small town like ever. Her parents like never let her do anything. So like, I guess I get it. Like, I think that did help, the fact that she added that, which I had forgotten that piece. So I was glad to be reminded of that. But this was still really good. I still gave it 5 stars. Like, I know people pointed out some of its downfalls, but I just don't care. I just don't care. I'm obsessed with Mac and Franny, and I love them together. And Mac is a single dad of 3 daughters, and they're all just amazing. And his backstory is really interesting too, because he was married before, but him and his ex-wife are no longer together, and the ex-wife kind of like abandoned the daughters. He's also a veteran, so when he came back from the military, that's kind of like what kind of led to him and his wife splitting up. So I like getting those pieces of it, and it is obviously like a forbidden taboo romance, because not only is there the age gap, not only is she his nanny, but he's also the CEO of Cloverleaf Farms, which is the big, like, is it like a bed and breakfast kind of place, but they also do like weddings there. They have like a wine tasting room, like all these things. It's like a vineyard, I guess, like a winery kind of place, but it's also like a hotel. So I don't know what you would call that, but her family has owned this property, and he's like the CEO or CFO. I don't know what it is about this book. Like, even when I finished it, I was like, okay, I know it's not perfect, but I just love them so much, and I just love the story. I don't know if it's just the nostalgia of it, but I feel like this is one of my first age gaps that I really liked. So I don't know, this will always hold a special place in my heart, so it was a 5-star. I couldn't help it. Then the second book is Undeniable. This is a 4-star read. This is not my favorite, but it's still really good. So this one is kind of interesting. It's kind of like a childhood friends to lovers, but it's more so one of those childhood friendships where they were like always getting on each other's nerves, or like always getting into trouble with each other, and they have a lot of history together. But what reunites them all these years later is Chloe the female main character. She's the second youngest sister. So the Cloverleaf Farms, like the whole series that I'm talking about right now, there's 5 books. This is book 2. And each book is about a different sister in this family. So Chloe is kind of like the manager at Cloverleaf Farms, and she helps run like the tasting room, and she does like all of their like marketing, like things like that. She wants to open a distillery, and she specifically wants to open like a whiskey distillery. Part of the reason why she has that dream is because it's a dream that she cooked up in the past with her ex-best friend Oliver, and they had a big falling out years ago. She does not trust him anymore. You find out that part of the reason why is because he has his own distillery, and you kind of find out that he basically took their idea and ran with it by himself and just like left her out of it, which obviously the circumstances make sense once you read their backstory, like, and you get the glimpses of the past throughout. But her parents don't know about all that. But they give her this ultimatum, like, okay, we'll let you add a distillery to the family property, but you have to mentor, or you have to be with this guy and let him be your mentor for 6 months so that you get that experience and that knowledge, and then we know it'll be a successful business. So she's pissed. She's like, I'm not gonna work under that guy. This is ridiculous. I can't believe that you're making me do this, you know. And it just kind of goes from there, and you find out Oliver had like this big plan all along, so then it all makes sense. The plot is really good, I will say. Just this romance is definitely interesting. It's definitely hate to love. Like, the line between hate and love between these two is like the thinnest line possible. So there's a lot of ups and downs in their relationship, and it was definitely a good time. Definitely a good time. Then you've got the third book, which is between Meg and Noah. So Meg is the middle daughter. She is this, I think, like a lawyer in Washington, D.C. So she is not living at the small town with everybody else. She has her own life in D.C. and she hasn't visited the small town in years, but she's coming back for Franny's wedding from the first book. It's their wedding. So she's coming back to the small town for the first time in years, and she's kept in touch with her friend Noah. So they met in high school because he was actually a lifeguard at the time, and he saved her life, and they became friends ever since. Friendship starts to turn into more when they get reunited after all these years. They've kept in touch like through texting and like phone calls and stuff like that, but they haven't seen each other in person in years, and all these feelings start to come up, and it's their love story. This one was really good. He's a cop, so like that was a fun little twist. And he is also a twin, but you find out his twin brother has cerebral palsy. So there's a lot of emotional baggage there with him, because he obviously feels guilty that his twin is the one who has cerebral palsy, but he, you know, got lucky and got this like, you know, great life. You know, he has had a hard time keeping relationships because a lot of women don't want that responsibility of taking care of his brother when he gets older. So he's kind of like written off relationships. He's like, I'm just gonna be alone because that way I can take care of my brother, and I know that he will be taken care of. This was really good. It doesn't have as much plot as the rest of the books, I feel like. This one is like just the characters, but I didn't mind it. It was really good. I still gave it 5 stars. Okay, then you have Unbreakable. This is actually the oldest sister, Sylvia. So Sylvia is recently divorced from her ex-husband, and she is a single mom of 2 kids, Whitney, who's like 13, and then Eaton, I think, who's like 8, something like that. And they are moving back to the small town now that she's not with the ex-husband anymore. The ex-husband was a piece of work, let me tell you. He was just one of those rich guys who thought he could like buy her everything and that would be enough, and you know, he would take his kids on trips and stuff, but then he would never spend time with them. And they kind of like lost love in their marriage a long time ago. He's been cheating on her for years. Well, he got this other girl pregnant. It's a whole thing. So she kind of has to rebuild a new life for her and her kids. So she's like, okay, we're gonna go back to where my family is, to where I know there are people that care about us. And she forms a special bond with Henry. So Henry is actually the winemaker at Cloverleaf Farm. So he's worked on the family farm for years. He is in charge of making all the wine. So he like grows the vines and is like very sciencey, but like also a farm boy, which like, who knew we needed that in a man? But clearly we do. And he's also going through a recent divorce, but his experience is a little bit different. Unfortunately, they had to go through IVF treatments several times. They were having a lot of infertility issues, trying to have children, and it kind of like tore their marriage apart just because of the way it like manifested in their relationship, unfortunately. So I think this is honestly my favorite book of the series now, like reading this series a second time. I think if you would have asked me before this reread, I would have told you that book 1 was my favorite. But after rereading it, I think this one is my favorite just because this is the most emotional of the series, hands down. I will say Melanie Harlow doesn't always write fluffy romances, like she does put emotion into it, but this is definitely, I think, the most she's ever put into a book before, and it is really strong. Like the fact that you have Sylvia, who's going through her own divorce, and then Henry going through his divorce, how their experiences were so different, but at the same time they have like common ground, that they're really able to develop a special bond together through a time where they're both going through healing. I think that was very important to highlight, and as a child of a divorced family, I think that she did a really good job of showing what it's like for the kids as well. I love how there was a lot of interaction with her kids on page in terms of how her kids were dealing with it, how her kids were dealing with her talking to Henry after the breakup and things like that. I don't know, it was just really, really well done. I feel like I would give this a 6-star rating, maybe, but I don't know if that counts because it's a reread. I don't know. You let me know. I guess I can make the rules, right? So like I have to follow someone else's rules. But yeah, this really hit me a lot harder the second time around than it did the first time I read it 3 years ago. I highly recommend. This was so well done. So well done. The last book of the series, Unforgettable. So this one I remembered incorrectly. I thought this was a secret baby trope. Which I don't think that's a spoiler, because if you've like read the other books, like you find out, I think in book 4, that April, the last sister in this family, that she did have an unexpected pregnancy when she was 18, and she did have to give the baby up for adoption. And I thought that it was a secret baby. I didn't remember that the mailman character in this book, Tyler, I didn't know that he knew, but he did know. So they both agreed when they were 18 that she would give the baby up for adoption, because she had already gone off to college and he had been drafted by the MLB, so he's a baseball player. Neither of them are equipped to raise a baby, and it was just from like a one-night stand kind of thing, like on the last day of high school before he went to the draft. It makes it sound like he's going to war. You know what I mean? Before he went to go play baseball. It's just kind of like a one-time fling. They weren't in a relationship or anything like that. So she did reach out to him when she was pregnant. She did talk to him about it. They both agreed they would give the baby up for adoption. That was that. They didn't keep in touch. It was just they both agreed and they went on with their lives. Well, it's 18 years later, and April is deciding that she wants some closure and she wants to meet her son for the first time. So she's kind of going through that like personally, and then meanwhile, Tyler, the baseball player, he's coming back to the small town because his sister is getting married, and he hasn't been to the small town since he was a professional baseball player because his career was ruined because he basically embarrassed himself and lost his game in the World Series because he was like the best pitcher in the world, you know, like he was like a star, like one of the best ever, and he just lost his touch, like just randomly during a World Series game. Nothing happened, nothing triggered it. He just stopped pitching well, and no one knows why. He became kind of like the laughingstock of the league. They did documentaries about how terrible it was, how no one could figure out what it was that made him lose his pitch. Like, it's just terrible. So he's like a hermit now. He has been living in this like cabin in California. He's going back to the small town for this wedding, and he ends up reconnecting with April, and it's their love story. This plot is very unique because normally, again, you would think it's a secret baby, but it's not. They both knew about it, but it's still like something they both went through together, but they both have lived their own lives since then. You know, they didn't really like bond over it, but now it's kind of like they get their chance to talk about it and like really kind of reconnect with each other. And yeah, it was really good. I gave it 5 stars. So don't ask me to rank them. I don't know if I could. My favorite is definitely Unbreakable, book 4, the one with the 2 divorced people. My least favorite is probably the second one, the one that was like the friends to enemies to lovers. That one was probably my least favorite. Those 2 I could definitely tell you, but the rest of them I just really, really like. So don't make me choose. Don't make me choose. So yeah, I binged that series. Clearly, I was reading like 1 book a day. Like, I could not get enough. It helps that they're pretty quick reads and they're rereads, so I feel like I didn't have to like pay as much attention because I could remember most of it. Okay, now we'll go over the 2 audiobooks I listened to this month. So this one was also a reread. This is Falling Into You by A.L. Jackson. You guys already know. I've been rereading a lot of her books via audio just because it's comforting for me, and I feel like it is more successful for me to have a good audiobook experience if it's a book I've already read before, because I don't have to pay as much attention. So it's okay like if I miss something, or you know, if my mind wanders, or if I get distracted by something else. So I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm working, so it just kind of works out that way. But this is part of her Falling Stars series. So this is about like the country band Caroline and George. So in this one, Richard, the male main character, is the guitar player. This is definitely not a dark romance, but there's like some crazy stuff that happens to these people in their past. Let me tell you what, they get wrapped up in this like this world of the music industry where people are not who they say they are, and a lot of them are into like seedy kind of like lifestyles with like drugs, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? Like it's that kind of vibe. And unfortunately, Richard was a witness to some terrible things, and it kind of forced him into like making deals with people because he couldn't expose what he had seen. And you find out that that kind of got in the way of his previous relationship with this female main character. So this is a second chance romance, which is my fave. So you guys, I'm sure you can predict that I love this book. This is a reread. I gave it 4.5 stars this time around. I had forgotten parts of it, and I don't even want to tell you because I want you to go into it blind, but this is definitely heavier. She's a single parent. He comes back to the small town after they've been on tour for a while, and you find out all of their past and everything. Like, he has to grovel. He has to like expose a lot of things from the past that she didn't even know. And this is just so emotional. Like, I just feel my heart was breaking for them individually, but also your heart is like breaking for them that they couldn't be together all this time. But it's okay because this is their second chance. But yeah, I don't want to give too much away, so I'm just gonna leave it there because I want you to go into it blind. Plus, I don't want to spoil anything for the rest of the series because this is the third book in the series, so I don't want to spoil anything else. But yeah, if you like rock star romances, second chance, single parent, small town, but with like a darker twist, this is the series for you, 100%. Then, oh, this one, another 6-star read, you guys. I'm telling you, it was a great reading month. I don't know what to say. I read Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. I wanted to read like an Irish book in honor of St. Patrick's Day. It's actually St. Patrick's Day the day I'm filming this video, so it worked out well. Oh my god. I don't even know how to describe this book to you without spoiling it, but this almost has like a magical realism kind of twist to it. So like, it starts off when they're kids and she's going to Ireland where her family's from. Her grandpa owns like a sheep farm in Ireland, and she's going there with her mother. She kind of like goes on a little adventure, you know, because she's a kid. She has like a wild imagination. So she's going into the woods or to the forest to find fairies, and she stumbles across a boy who's a couple years older than her, and she's convinced that he's a fairy just because of the way her imagination works. It's honestly really sweet the way that they meet, and you find out that he's kind of like been ostracized from the town because of his past and like who his dad is and who his mom is. And he's also mute. He doesn't talk. You know, she's just a kid. She doesn't know anything about his past. She just sees him and she just immediately starts, you know, playing games with him. And it's just like a wholesome, innocent start to their love story that I just really loved. So once a year she comes to visit Ireland. So every year when she comes to visit for like that week that she's there, they always reconnect in the forest, and it's just so sweet, so emotional. This does have some dark stuff in it, so read the triggers from B.B. Easton if you want to protect your mental health, because while it does have some pure innocent beginnings, it spirals into a lot of heavy hurtful things that these people go through in their lives. It's a doozy. I will say it's definitely a heavy read. It's not lighthearted by any means, but I just really appreciate the like whimsical side to the story that kind of comes up that you don't even expect. It's marketed as like an Irish mafia romance, which like it does kind of have parts of that towards the end, I guess, but just trust me, go in blind. Just know that it's like a childhood friends kind of connection between the two of them, and then just let the story take you away. It's just a great story to sink your teeth into, and you really like get consumed by it. Like, I finished this audiobook in like 24 hours because I was obsessed and I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah, I definitely want to get a physical copy of this book immediately because I need to have it in my hands. I want to annotate and highlight, and yeah, I definitely see myself rereading this a lot in the future because I just felt a really strong connection to these two, and I just loved their love story. So that was my month of reading for March so far. I can't believe it's 15 books and I'm not even done. It's only March 17th, people. We'll see what else I get into the rest of the month. I will keep you posted. Give this video a like and leave a comment down below telling me the best book you read in March so far. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my future videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.